Welcome to how to build your brand ambassador community. I'm Eva. I'm a brand strategist at Duel with background in creative strategy and working with brands to help them set up communities and set up specifically brand ambassador communities. I'm very much interested in the role of brands in people's lives and how purpose can be brought through the programs that they create. We also have Freddie. Freddie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. So yeah, great to be here everyone. I'm a brand advocacy consultant at Duel. I come from a consulting background at one of the big consulting firms, Bain, and then I coming off the back of that, founded my own brand. So I've sort of been through this journey as well. And now at Duel, I spend most of my time speaking to new brands about designing advocacy programs with their communities of ambassadors and customers and all the other great people around them who have relationships with the brand.
Nice. Cool. So in the next 30 or 45 minutes, we will go through the fundamentals of setting up your brand ambassador community. So starting off why brand ambassador communities matter and why you should be considering investing in them. I know we have sort of mixed levels of I guess experience with setting up brand ambassador communities, but I think regardless of whether you are on that journey, there'll be nuggets of information that will feel really, really relevant to you. The difference between ambassadors and influencers. So some of you may already be doing work with influencers and sort of paid partnerships. And I know that kind of the semantics and the language around that can get a little bit muddy. So we'll make sure that there's a clear distinction between what we mean by ambassadors and how they differ from influencers. Then helping you think about who your ambassadors might be and how you recruit them into your community or how you invite them to your community. A quick whistle stop over how to get started on building your brand ambassador community program. And we'll share the tools that we use at Duel to help brands set those up. But they are completely transferable regardless of whether you are using a tool or whether you're simply using a kind of a spreadsheet to manage all those relationships. The building blocks remain exactly the same. And then we'll also look at some case studies of brands who are really nailing community building in our opinion, but also cover how to think about ROI on your brand ambassador community programs and how to measure it. Because if you have dabbled in brand advocacy, you'll know that it's not a kind of a straightforward, attribution game that you have to think about it in a slightly different way. So we'll take you through that. But I'll hand over to Freddie in the first instance to kind of introduce us to brand advocacy at a high level and what we do at Duel.
Cool, fantastic. Thanks, Eva. So yeah, let's jump into this. So brand advocacy, what are the kind of key philosophies behind brands who are doing this really well and brands that are primed to do this really well? Well, look, we're all here because, or hopefully all here because we're trying to build purpose-led brands. And what does that mean? I mean, we've started these brands because, we believe we've got something that's genuinely going to make the lives of our communities better. This is not a short-term kind of smash and grab thing. We've got this purpose behind the brand, and with that purpose is really the key at the center that's going to attract a community around the brand. And then the question really is, okay, how can we fully mobilize that community to become advocates and fans of the brand and really shout their message on a wide scale? Eva, if you could just jump to the next slide, please. So this is just a list of a few of the brands we work with, and they've all got this key behind them. You can see completely varying industries, completely varying sizes and different challenges and opportunities and ambitions that they're facing because of all of that. But the key is behind them that they've got this purpose. you know, whether that's Tough Mudder, empowering people to you know, have fun and get fit for outdoor events while doing good stuff for charity, or whether that's for, you know, beauty brands like Beauty Pie, who are looking to really empower people to look and feel good about themselves by making these you know, these high price, high quality beauty products available to everyone at a reasonable price. They've all got that purpose behind them. If you just jump ahead to the next one, please, Eva. And so how do they then leverage that, really is the question. And to answer that, we've got to look at what's really happened in the brand space. So, you know, things are very different across a number of different industries and the way we interact with everything, really. So whether that's how you order your food, whether that's how you get a recommendation for the restaurant you're going to this weekend, you know, even without diving down this rabbit hole, even the kind of currency space is moving to a decentralized model. And so, you know, the message is that we are really moving, as technology has progressed and as we've moved online, more towards this decentralized ecosystem where community is really at the heart of everything. And, you know, just to give you an idea of where Duel started, Duel actually, or sort of the company that preceded Duel, was actually a gaming app studio. And our co-founders, their first venture was building gaming apps, and they became very obsessed with this idea of virality and how you could recruit players into these gaming apps without, you know, huge performance marketing spend. And Paul, who's our CEO, co-founder, he was actually at the same time a brand ambassador for 25 or 30 outdoor and adventure brands. So he had one foot in that brand world and thought, you know, brands need to come around to this idea of decentralization, network, and community. And that's really how Duel started. And the brand space in general is really coming around to this movement that's taking over how we interact with everything now. Eva, if you just jump to the next slide, please. So what does this look like compared to the old brand building story? I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. This is without naming brand names, this is the, you know, the D2C mattress company. It's the supplement brand that has its whole marketing outfit outsourced to an agency. You know, this is the story of brands who are just, you know, they want to build themselves to a level where they can go through their series of funding or be acquired. And really that's become a self-feeding fire. So they go for these very short-term performance marketing techniques. Those channels have become extremely competitive, so that the acquisition costs have gone through the roof. And, you know, if they have been acquired or if they are seeking investment in order to keep hitting their targets, so the valuation or the share price doesn't drop, they keep plowing money into these short-term techniques just to get the revenue numbers up. And, you know, it's one of these downward spirals that over the long term really sends the brand into a tailspin. This is not a recipe for long-term growth ever. If you just jump on, please. If we just hit the next slide, please. Brilliant, thanks. So what's the new way? Well, look, let's start by just acknowledging, you know, brands are created to make money. That is one of the core tenets of why we set out to create a brand. But really, you know, it is just that. It's one core tenet, and the others, as we kind of touched on at the beginning, are we're starting this brand because there's a purpose behind it. We believe that we have something to offer that's going to make the community around us, it's going to add something valuable to their lives. And the brands who are going to win over the next few years really understand this, you know, whether that's, you know, we got this beautiful mural of Patagonia. That's, you know, Patagonia is the original authentic founder story. This is you know, a rock climber who put on a rugby shirt because it was durable and thick and could, you know, hold all of his climbing gear, and set out to create a brand that would produce durable outdoor wear for people who really wanted to use that. And now this is a, you know, a household name, multi-billion-dollar brand. And actually, whether or not brands are purpose-led, a lot of these kind of smash and grab entrants into the direct-to-consumer brand market are actually trying to replicate that founder story. So it shows how powerful it is. And we're all here because We believe we've got that authentic founders story and mission at the start, and with that comes a community that's ready to leverage. Evva, if you could just, brilliant, thanks. So what do these communities look like that are there to be leveraged, that have been drawn into that kind of that passionate founder's mission and founder's story? Well, they fall into a number of different profiles, and community isn't just, who has followers, who can we reach on social media, who can spread our brand's message to as many people as possible. It's also, community is often offline, it's often online, but in small pockets where people have real authority. So for example, it might be a jewelry brand that like Monica Vinader, who have a section of up to 10,000 customers in their database who are really socially active, have a really great social following, are already posting about the brand, whether or not the brand's doing anything to nurture that, and are just waiting to be folded into a relationship with the brand where they're being brought closer and, not just enjoying the brand's products, but being offered fun and meaningful experiences to interact with the brand, and through doing so, plugging the brand's message as they're enjoying being part of that brand. It can also be people who don't have such a great following. For example, a brand that we've just launched is Charlotte Tilbury makeup brand, and they have 20,000 odd makeup artists who, some of them do have great social followings, some of them aren't so huge on social media, but the point is that they have authority within their own local communities, and the products that they use, anyone who looks to them for makeup will buy them. So it's a case for them of, how do we then mobilize these people by kitting them out with Charlotte Tilbury makeup, and making sure that they have, they can act as a beacon in their local community, whatever form or shape that takes. Evva, please jump on, thanks. So, brands can also, when you're thinking about what your community is, or how big it is, and just where to start with this whole thing, and start by thinking, oh, we have 50,000 customers in our CRM, or whatever number that is, and think that your network is that, and that it's just that. And actually that's the wrong model, because as a brand, you're not sitting on top of this CRM who you then drip communications down into. What you are is actually a node in a network. So if you think about this just in your own lives, you might know 1,000 people across the course of your life, and each of those people will also know 1,000 people, and that puts you one person away from 1 million people. So it's the same as a brand. You're not just sitting atop a database of 50,000 people or 100,000 people, or an Instagram account of 20,000 people. Each of those people has their own network, and if you take each of those people and fold them into a relationship with your brand, then you will reach those people in your sort of followers network, and it will be like ripples spreading outwards. And we see that when brands actually commit to doing this, that kind of old story of plowing money into performance marketing, rising acquisition costs, chasing quarterly revenue targets, that's come with this influx into social media marketing, influencer marketing on Instagram, that sort of diminishing return that's been caused by everyone crowding into the space. We found this new kind of return back to the sustainability and the long-term growth that was there at the beginning for really innovative brands who first started out with this kind of partnership online social media marketing, where you can actually invest in this over a longer term, and it's going to have a multiplying effect rather than a kind of a dog chasing its tail effect that we see with traditional Facebook marketing. Yeah, so if we look at an example of this, our Lululemon's a brand that we talk about a lot internally. Our lead strategist was head of community there for almost 10 years, and what they've done is looked at their advocates, looked at their communities, and really really figured out where the most passionate ones are. And for them, as we touched on earlier, it's different profiles. For them, it was really the employees. So, you know, you walk into a retail outlet that sells Lululemon, anyone there is kitted out head to toe and really loves the product and knows the product. And, you know, you can approach someone and they'll tell you, you know, exactly everything about it, you know, and really direct you in the best way that way. So that's kind of an example of a different profile of community that's been really mobilized to shout the brand's message. But, you know, as we kind of touched on, these communities are everywhere around the brand. It's in your customer base, you know, it's in whatever industry you're in. If you're, you know, if you're kind of a sports equipment brand or you know, in that kind of health and wellness space, it's athletes, it's fitness pros, it's, you know, it's beauticians, dietitians, people who are really authorities in those space, who are ready to be pulled into the brand and then shout its message. You know, we see that this method of brand building, this philosophy of brand building is really ratified. You know, we touched on Patagonia earlier, but if you look at the brands who are doing this well, they're all household name, multi-billion-dollar brands. I mean, Gymshark was really paved the way in this kind of partnership brand building growth model, where all of their you know, almost all of their growth was through partnerships with, you know, people who genuinely loved and lived the brand and were, you know, posting incredible content of themselves and working out in Gymshark gear and doing that at scale. And they've grown through that. And, you know, if you're in an adjacent space to that, I'm sure you can see that lots of different brands are now looking at Gymshark as a beacon of, okay, how do we replicate that? And the key is, you know, that the passion is that if the passion is there from the start, it's ready to be replicated. So, you know, if the passion is there, what we don't want to do is then kind of neglect that or corrupt that by, you know, turning to these quick wins, whether these are, you know, short-term paid partnerships with people who have nothing to do with the brand, who don't, you know, who don't really have never bought something from the brand, don't know anything about it, aren't primed to shout its message, and in fact have a different brand's affiliate link in their Instagram bio every week. You know, your genuine customers can smell that from a mile away. So these, you know, and these authentic advocates of the brand, they're you know, within all of your networks. So, you know, I speak to brands all the time who come to us and say, you know, we've got this community. How do we find them? Is this something, you know, should we be looking to grow this through, you know, looking at influencers on a platform that can find influencers? And, you know, that's completely against kind of the philosophy of what we're trying to do here. Your best advocates already love your brand, and all you have to do is look within the different networks and the different channels that you communicate with your customers through. So whether that's your CRM, you know, whether that's your Instagram following, whether that's, you know, through your partnerships team, there are going to be, you know, we spoke about paid partnerships. That can also be done in an authentic way. There's always going to be a place for these partnerships with the bigger influencers, bigger kind of, you know, paid, whether that's celebrities, and those are always going to be managed on a very personal level with the brands. I was actually speaking to a Spanish furniture brand this morning, and they do paid partnerships with probably 20 a month of that kind of profile of celebrities, you know, artists, people who are really high profile. But, you know, they've got a team who go through all of the profiles of people who they could conceivably work with in that space. And the first thing they look for is, okay, is this person aligned with our values? They're a B Corp that you know, sustainability is at the heart of everything they do. And so that's the first criteria before taking on a paid partnership. And then that puts them in a position to get into a 360 collaboration with these celebrities, where the celebrity can plug the brand, the furniture brand, and then the brand gives them a space, you know, sort of within their own community to you know, plug some of their own initiatives, and that's been a huge instrumental part of their growth. So they exist everywhere. There's a place for all of these different profiles of advocates, but the key is they're driven by the same purpose and the same passion, and that, you know, they love your brand, and that allows them to be drawn in.
Thank you so much for kind of giving us a high-level introduction into brand advocacy. So the next part is pretty tactical. So we're going to share some tools which will hopefully give you a starting point to build your own program or revise your own a brand ambassador community program. So picking up on Freddie's last point about kind of recruitment and who are your brand ambassadors, this really doesn't have to be complicated. And a best starting point is looking at your customer and brand fan base. So what I mean by that is obviously people who have purchased from you in the past, and people who maybe haven't yet purchased anything, but they've clearly demonstrated the love and interest in the brand. So this could be people engaging with your stuff on socials or tagging you in certain things on socials. And within that pool of people, identifying people who are active on social. And that's a perfect starting point to start engaging and building your brand ambassador community. So taking the existing pool of customers and brand fans, and within that, identifying those who are social media native, comfortable posting on social and advocating on your behalf. For many brands, of course, that will, involve a kind of a sweet spot of a minimum social following. But as we'll get to just in a second, the social following will always be less relevant than the true sort of passion and the love for the brand and the values that you're trying to communicate. So we know what happens when brands kind of tend to be seduced by, big followings and big partnerships, which have a place in terms of, they certainly help, reach loads and loads of people. But of course, there is a trade-off involved. So for many big brands, their advocacy strategy will kind of involve a mix of different networks, people who have a really large following that help to drive this kind of awareness at a really, really large scale, but also activating these really passionate, authentic brand advocates who have a much smaller following, but are much, much higher authenticity. For our brands, often the sweet spot is around 1,000 to 2,000 followers on Instagram, because that tends to be a really big channel, and a really good channel to sort of start with. And if you're able to identify people who kind of sit at that sweet spot or start at that sweet spot, but they really truly have a passion for the brand, then you're able to activate these pockets of different networks and use people or collaborate with people to communicate your values in a really authentic manner. Just to, I guess, explain, I don't know whether you're familiar with this pretty horrific situation of an influencer on the left-hand side. This is, I think, a Listerine paid partnership, and the poor girl got completely sort of slanted on social media and the brand itself as well. She's portraying her sort of ideal morning. And if you look really closely, the pancakes here are not actually pancakes, they're folded tortillas. So this is what you want to avoid, right? You don't want people advocating for your brand in an authentic manner. That can be really, really damaging for the brand and for your advocacy efforts. So if in doubt, always choose authenticity over social following. And then, of course, once you sort of identify that pool of potential brand ambassadors to invite into your community, I guess the big question is, how do you know they're right for the brand? Yes, you can look at their social content, but a really good and a very simple way to check whether they are right for the brand is simply ask them. So most of the brands that we work with, when they're inviting people to join their ambassador advocacy programs, they will ask them what we call a screening question. So this isn't about, kind of checking their social content, or this is a question that will allow you to understand their tone of voice, understand the genuinity and authenticity of the passion they have for the brand. So there's a few examples here from many different brands that we work with. For example, one of the jewelry brands that we work with, ask people what about their special day in their lives, a memory that they will treasure forever, because that's what the brand really kind of wants to own and be connected to. So think about it as a kind of a first screening that allows you to not invite people who perhaps sign up for many, many different branded programs and won't really advocate on your behalf in an authentic manner. Now, in terms of getting started on building your program, there are three very clear steps, and I'll share with you in just a second a template that we work through with our brands, but effectively it starts with being really clear on your vision and brand contribution. And what I mean by that is, beyond the product and service that you're offering, what is it that you're bringing to people's lives, and how can you unite the community? What are the values that will unite people in your community beyond the product or the service that you're offering? If you root everything that you do in that, you have a much higher chance of actually engaging people, because you transcend the product or the service, and you're tapping into something that is a lot more universal. Step two is being quite disciplined about the values and objectives of the program. So of course, growing word of mouth is probably what you're what we're all trying to do with brand advocacy, but being quite specific. So is it about, do you really want people to be creating amazing content on your behalf? Because that will, greatly reduce your need for your own production budgets, and it's actually a lot more authentic and resonates a lot more with your audience. Have some really tangible objectives that you're able to measure against. Simply because it's good practice, and it will help you to set up the program in a more cohesive manner, but also, of course, it will help you to sell or get the buy-in for your advocacy efforts internally a lot more. So, don't kind of skip that step, and apply some discipline in terms of having very, very clear objectives before you start building the program. And there's nothing magic about sort of number three, but anything more, things start to get a little bit muddy. So if you are at the beginning of your journey, start with top three values and objectives, and then build from there. And then the third point is, kind of get stuck into it, to scope out a structure. How, what are you asking people to do in terms of advocating for you, and how are you rewarding them for it? Start with a baseline. So start small, start in a manageable way, and then build as you go along. Also, because once you seed out the program out there, you will get so much feedback from people who are your advocates, that you'll be able to pivot it and change it to make it more relevant. So what you might build today will probably change in 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months time, as you start to develop a better relationship with your community. Lead with really trying to offer great value and incentive to the community. So there is something to be said about, if you're always thinking about what you can gain from it as a brand, potentially you're missing out on really capturing and engaging people. If you can be really empathetic about it and think about how do you create the best possible program for your community so that everybody wants to be part of it, then you're a lot more likely to be successful in it. And I'll just stop sharing for a second and show you the Miro board that we use with our clients, and also very happy to send anyone who's interested the link to that Miro board afterwards, if you kind of want to have a go ahead and filling it out for yourself. So as you can see, the top bit goes through the kind of current state of your brand community, the dreams or your long-term vision for the community that you're trying to build, and values and objectives around it. So that should give you a really clear baseline to sort of start building a program with. And then the second part is a very, very practical kind of breakdown of the different tiers that you can start building out in your program, with a bunch of different example tasks and rewards. They are, you know, quite sort of generic because it's a sort of it's a little toolbox. So definitely it's worth sort of spending you know, a good chunk of time thinking about how does your brand sort of look like and feel like. So that first part of the workshop, where you really dig into your dream and your values, to make the second part of the tasks and rewards really, really unique to you. So as I said, very, very happy to share that after the webinar, and also talk anyone through it in more detail if you'd like. But coming back to our presentation, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, and I'm aware that we're nearing the end here, but I think it's worth us taking a moment to kind of have a look at the brands that are really nailing community. So having worked with many brands and having built different brand advocacy programs, we've managed to kind of pull out the key threads of what makes community building really, really successful. And we distilled it into these 4 C's of brand community building. So I'll walk you through them, and then I'll bring in a few examples of that in practice. So the first and foremost, and something that we touched on during the webinar, is contribution. So what is your meaningful contribution to the community beyond the product and the service that you're offering? So like, how will you earn your right to participate in that community? Because, you know, you are, you know, trying to sort of activate the community, but you're also kind of a member of it. So think about truly what is it that you're bringing to it, and be honest about it. Commitment. So do you see community as something that you can kind of bolt on and be just another channel in terms of your marketing efforts, or is it truly embedded as a value into your entire business and activated across your entire business? Are you truly accounting for all stakeholders? It's very, very difficult to build you know, genuine community if the commitment from the business and from the brand just simply isn't there. Then control. So this is again crucial into building an authentic community. Are you ready to let go of some of the control? You know, you probably spent an awful lot of time and effort you know, developing brand guidelines and kind of being the custodian of your brand, but are you happy to let some of that go and release it into the world, knowing that people won't necessarily stick to those guidelines at all? And that's a good thing, right? The way people naturally talk about your brand and your values will probably be quite different to what you sort of set out in your marketing meetings. But that's, you know, that's the kind of the risk you take with advocacy, but the payoffs really are quite high if you're able to let go of some of that control. And then the fourth one is conversation. So across all your initiatives, are you building ways to have a two-way conversation? So, you know, this really relates to something that Freddie was talking about at the very beginning, you know, moving away from that top-down communication to a genuine exchange with the people who, you know, are investing in your brand and advocating on your behalf. Is feedback baked into all your community initiatives? Do you collect insights from people? Are you constantly kind of collecting feedback and insights and pivoting as you go along? And do you have diverse ways for people to engage with? So when you're building out your program, are you considering the different ways people could be advocating on your behalf? And that could look like, you know, activating sort of different channels, being really creative about the briefs that you put out there. But are you truly kind of giving people different ways to engage with the brand? So super quickly going to just show you a few examples of the brand that I think are doing a great job with their ambassador community. Bumble, you know, they really managed to transcend the sort of the social digital world and bringing their community into the physical. And what I think they've done really successfully is they understood the value that they're able to bring to their community, and that's effectively you know, the magic of kind of human connection. And they've understood very well that the people who are likely to be interested in their brand ambassador program are also people who are, you know, really into networking. They are driven and ambitious, and perhaps are trying to make a headway in the marketing industry. So their rewards are very much centered around rewarding those qualities that they so well understood in their community. RAB is an amazing example of commitment to a community. So they have different advocacy programs for their employers, for their ambassadors, for their athletes, you know, for their regular customers who don't really have a loyal, you know, big social following. Every single brand network is recognized within brand and activated within RAB. So and their commitment also kind of is showcased through the fact that all of their tasks, or a lot of their tasks in their programs, ask people to do something that isn't self-centered, right? So they really want people to kind of feel the connection with the wider community. So oftentimes they will ask people to contribute to sort of big databases of, you know, amazing walks, local walks, and give people tips around safety when mountaineering. So they're really sort of forming that that amazing community that that feels much bigger than just the individual. Rafa is a wonderful example of a brand that produces extremely high quality content, like beautiful, you know, cycling porn style content, but also is very good at letting go of that control. So they know when they have to produce super branded content, and they know that there also has to be space for completely non-branded stuff. So for example, their apps and their kind of digital community and forum doesn't have any branded messaging out there. They simply let people kind of connect and get together for rides. But yeah, they keep very, very little control of that and allow for that to be authentic. And then lastly, tropicfeel, an amazing Barcelona-based brand who absolutely nailed this idea of conversation. So they involve their customers, you know, at every stage of the journey, continuously collect feedback about sustainability and CSR initiatives, feedback on products, to a point of actually co-creating some of the new launches with the community. So giving people an option or an opportunity to input into the designs of the product that they're launching. And effectively what that means, that once that product is launched, is absolutely you know, answering the needs of the community, because they have managed to involve it along the way. So a really, really interesting brand to check out. Just really quickly, I think we've got a couple of minutes to go over ROI, Freddie.
Yeah, absolutely. So just looking at you know, attributing a return to the investment in this kind of sustainable brand building way. So, you know, a symptom of this old top-down method that we spoke about is, you know, it's very easy to get sucked into that trap of attributing a cost and return on everything, you know, even down to individual acquisitions. And, you know, you can do that with referral and affiliate sales as part of a community program. Referrals and affiliates will always be an important part of that. But there's a load of non-purchase related data that's really important for you to know as a brand. You know, if you have within your Instagram follower base 1,000 micro influencers, each of whom have 1,000 followers, and they're posting about your brand once a week, you're reaching 1 million people a week. And that's data that you really need to know as a brand. And if you compare that to, you know, the traditional metrics of performance marketing, like cost per impressions, then the return you get from investing in building out that community is pretty high. But, you know, if we take that down a level of decentralization to, what about people who are sharing in Facebook groups? What about people who are sharing in their WhatsApp groups with their friends, you know, talking about your brand in those spaces? That's still really powerful, possibly more powerful. There's, you know, personal recommendations, but less trackable. Take it down a level of decentralization again, completely offline. What about people who are just in the pub talking about your brands? You know, I'm sure you can think about you know, last time you were in the pub and talking about a brand or a product you really liked. That happens, and it's hugely powerful. And the point is, we're investing in this community movement that's going to power and get the wheels turning on all of this community advocacy. So there's this trackable financial data is the tip of the iceberg. There's non-financial trackable data that's just beneath that, but really there's a whole you know, a whole kind of base of return underneath all of that you're not going to track in such a precise way, but it still is absolutely part of the return and will feed into you know, purchases down the line. You know, as we spoke about earlier, that kind of sharing across these different profiles, they all communicate in their own unique ways and in their own unique spaces. You know, whether that's the influencers or the pros or your general customer base. And the real return is in building a movement so that, you know, at the end of all of this, you can make it a repeatable cycle. So these people are, you know, continuously sharing about your brand and about your products within their communities, and then it's an always on evergreen channel, and it's not something where you're constantly having to design the next campaign, you know, split test what's worked and what hasn't, and then, you know, discard half of it really quickly. This is something that's continuous. It's built an identity and momentum behind it, and it's just, you know, a whole wide range of people talking about your brand all the time. Now, if we look at, you know, offsetting this against some kind of cost, there is, you know, a gifting budget necessary to nurture the community. You know, we want to put great stuff from our brand into their hands, so they have the materials they need to then go out and create awesome stuff and share about the brand, and also just to get the products from the brand they love into their hands so that they can have a great experience with it and be drawn in closer to the brand throughout that. So the key is really offset this against, you know, the trackable reach that you see first and all those other kind of measurable metrics and statistics. But remember that what we're doing here is building a movement, and there's going to be so much offline stuff and online that's not so trackable, that's really just building momentum behind your brand, you know, pushing its message out, building your identity up to that level where you've, you know, that's how brands like Patagonia and Gymshark have got to where they are, is investing in that less trackable stuff. And, you know, it's you know, it's all there clear to see now, but it's a case of that long-term investment on what's not immediately trackable at the start. And that's everything from me. I'm going to hand back over to you, Evva.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with us, and sorry for running over a little bit. But I hope you found it useful. Please do get in touch if you have any questions, or if you'd like to chat through any of it in a little bit more detail, because I appreciate this was a bit of a whistle stop. But yeah, good luck with building your brand advocacy, and get in touch if you have any questions. Thank you so much.